Hello everyone. Today we will talk about Paap Kartari Yoga. You must have commonly heard people using this term, saying that because of Paap Kartari Yoga, things aren't working out. But which things aren't working out? Who is stopping those things? And why do things sometimes work out even when Paap Kartari is present? We assess a planet's natural significance and lordship. Paap Kartari affects both, blocking house functions. Clients unfamiliar with astrology may wonder what's wrong. Today, we'll clarify what to tell them and who blocks you. Paap Kartari means no support. If two malefic planets surround one, its neighbors are bad. Without good neighbors, you'll feel their effects. Paap Kartari occurs when two malefic planets surround another, creating unsupportive neighbors. This affects the planet's influence. Check if these planets move towards or away from the main one. For example, Mars moves towards Venus and Jupiter, showing Paap Kartari's effect. So today, we will understand what we need to tell the client, what won't work out, and who will block you in which area. Let's start with Paap Kartari. To understand it in simple terms and language, there's no support system. In Paap Kartari, if there are two malefic planets around one planet, it means that its neighbors are not good. Now, if your neighbors aren't good and aren't supporting you, obviously, you will not feel good. You might feel the effects of the planets on your right and left sides. In both houses, there can be 11 malefic planets, and there can be more than one. You must have definitely heard that. We should check the intensity of Paap Kartari, meaning we need to see whether the planets in the neighboring houses are approaching the main planet or moving away from it. How do we determine this? If we look at Venus and Jupiter in this chart, we see that Mars is in the house behind them, and the Sun and Saturn are in the house ahead. So, Mars is moving towards Venus and Jupiter, because obviously it will go from Taurus to Gemini, since it is not retrograde. So, Mars has created a very high intensity of Paap Kartari, and the Sun is not retrograde. And Saturn is not retrograde either. The Sun and Saturn are moving away from Venus and Jupiter, so the intensity is low. But if Mercury is in Paap Kartari, then the Sun and Saturn are moving towards Mercury. And on the other side, Rahu is also moving towards Mercury. So, the intensity of Mercury's Paap Kartari is very high, and you must have definitely heard about it. But how does it affect us? What does Paap Kartari mean in relation to the 12th house and the second house? The planet in the 12th house acts like a baggage for that planet. It represents its past, like a burden. You must have also heard that if a planet behind you is a benefic planet, a natural benefic planet, and also a benefic planet in the fire sign, it can be quite favorable. This support you get is a support system. So, having one benefic planet in the 12th house means there's a baggage, a burden that you are carrying behind you. And if there's a malefic planet in the second house, it acts like a constraint. It holds you back. After saying this, it is important to check whether the planets creating Paap Kartari are friends or enemies of that planet. If you are not looking at this, then you are not understanding the intensity of Paap Kartari. If Venus is in a particular house with Rahu behind it and Saturn ahead, then it is Paap Kartari. But should we consider Saturn as a friend of Venus for the benefit? You should take it. But if Saturn is in the house ahead, then the losses from Paap Kartari, the significations of Venus that will be lost from there, will they be greater? Absolutely, they will be. So always keep the friendship limited. Mine, before analyzing Paap Kartari, we also need to see from which zodiac sign the planets are creating Paap Kartari. Now, if Saturn is ahead of Venus but is sitting in Cancer, it is creating Paap Kartari for Venus. So, The zodiac sign, where Saturn is sitting, is not a friendly sign for Venus. That also plays a vital role. After that, we said that the natural signification of the planet has deteriorated. Now, if the Sun and Saturn are making Venus a malefic, then the natural signification of Venus, which is about wife, luxuries, comfort, convenience, and happiness, will be affected. If Saturn is making it malefic and is positioned in its enemy sign while also sitting in Venus's enemy sign, then it creates a problem. So now that problem which will occur will be like a blockage. So this Saturn blockage is constraining you, and you're getting constrained by the signification of Saturn. The moon is also becoming malefic. So what is the malefic signification of the moon? The moon represents the mother. When malefic, it disrupts peace. Peace and happiness are impacted when it becomes malefic. If Mars is involved, then it is a friend and should provide benefits. If Mars is not involved, so there's too much happening in your mind, your mind is not at peace. It can be broader because of property, because of land. It's affecting both of their natural significations. Who is making the moon? Malefic. We'll study how planets become malefic. Venus in Cancer affects comfort, but Venus isn't comfortable there. Whatever planet is becoming malefic, its lordship is also considered. We will understand this through charts. After that, where the malefic aspect is being created, like if Venus is in Cancer, then what does Cancer naturally represent? It represents the mother, comfort, luxury, vehicles, and home. And Venus is not comfortable in Cancer. So now we'll explore Cancer traits. They hold in animosity to root. So now there will be some qualities and traits of Cancer that we will also explore. So we need to judge this principle at every level. We will explore the natural significations of the zodiac signs. After that, you also need to remember that whenever a planet sits in a house, the lord of that house is less important than the planet itself because that talent belongs to someone else. So, and they don't have control over it. Talent can either enhance or diminish it. So, how is the tenant's relationship with that house? How comfortable is it? You also need to consider whether the owner of that house is welcoming it or not. We will apply all these principles to one chart. As I mentioned earlier, here Venus and Jupiter are both planets, and the first rule that will come into play is friendship and animosity. First, we will focus on Venus, then focus on Jupiter. Mars is behind Venus. Mars and Venus, they have a harmonious relationship with each other. They don't have animosity towards Venus. And Mars is sitting in Venus's own sign, so Mars won't burden Venus too much. Let's move forward. Next, Venus will meet the Sun and Saturn. Now, the Sun is very malefic towards Venus, that's for sure. We will look at the Sun's significations, and it is sitting in Cancer. Saturn is also there. So we will consider Saturn as well, because Saturn is also in Cancer. It's just that Saturn is a friend to Venus, so our focus will shift more towards the Sun compared to Saturn. Mars is behind Jupiter, and they are friends. In front of Jupiter is the Sun, which is its friend, and it is in Cancer, which is the sign of its friend. Jupiter has a harmonious relationship with Saturn, so Venus is more afflicted here than Jupiter when we talk about malefic planets. Now, we need to forget about the client for a moment and discuss some technical aspects. What is the natural signification of Venus? Comfort, convenience, the lady of your life in a happy space. If the malefic planets link the Sun and Saturn, the Sun is the father of your confidence, how you project yourself, your reputation. Saturn is a blockage. Saturn is your house of help. So is Venus being affected because of all these factors. Let me explain further. Venus is lord of 7th and 2nd houses. Sun is lord of 5th house. Saturn is lord of 10th and 11th houses. I also need to add that finance, family, and marriage can suffer because of your thinking process, because the fifth house will be about how you perceive your reputation, your games, and your network circle. Now, what has happened in their life is that they are not married, and their marriage, the biggest reason for their not being married is their father, because their father doesn't work. And that trait has been passed down to them, which is why they haven't received any decent proposals. And he was always thinking, hi, I also need to know about himself. I also need this. But he never realized that if you want everything like 100% opposite partner, you should also be bringing something to the table. So they don't see their own shortcomings, nor do they see the shortcomings in the other person. Because of wanting and desiring everything, their relationship didn't happen. The biggest reason was their father. Another thing is that it's not working. So obviously the seventh house is in a bad spot. The fourth point, because of the north node not working, because of not earning money, and because of the sun, because your mindset affects how you perceive things. So this is how it applies to their chart after discussing the malefic influence on Venus. Now, let's talk about the malefic influence on Jupiter. Jupiter has the advantage of having both his close friends. If Jupiter is being influenced by Saturn or feeling some kind of constriction, so I would say that Jupiter is about the responsibilities of life. Jupiter shows how responsible the people around us are, so it takes charge of that. He himself is definitely not a responsible person. Other than that, I don't think Jupiter has faced any significant losses. Now we talked about the condition of the sign where the malefic influence is forming. Venus does not hold animosity towards Gemini. So Venus won't spoil the sign of Gemini that much. But Jupiter is happy towards Mercury. They don't have negative feelings towards Mercury. So, what can I say? Their ninth house of wealth is getting affected. Having a father or not is pretty much the same in their life. Their ninth thought wealth is deteriorating. Fathers can be negative. Next, Mercury, Saturn behind, Rahu ahead. In fact, a father can act as a negative influence. Now, let's move on to Mercury. Mercury has Saturn behind it and Rahu in front. Mercury is in conjunction with the Sun and considers Saturn a friend, but it's sitting in a sign where it's forming a malefic aspect. Where Mercury does not have friendships, even Saturn is not very comfortable there. And Rahu is in Virgo. Rahu loves to be in Virgo. Rahu is quite comfortable there, doing quite well recently, well in the sixth house, and it is also a friend of Mercury. Mercury's malefic aspect affects analytical skills and career competitiveness. With communication issues linked to Mars in Gemini, this video helps understand malefic aspects and potential challenges. Thank you. If he goes to Paap Kartari, then obviously we will see some losses there. Through what? Through fifth through 10 through level. So he is not competing. It comes to his career position and many coming. I would not say that he is analytically fool. He knows very well what is good and what is bad for him. But then a selfish approach has come in. Another thing I could figure out is that his communication ability is something that puts him off in the second house where Mars is in Gemini. This is in a malefic aspect, signifying speech. Mercury is also in a malefic aspect. So maybe because of that, the whole idea of making this video was to look at the malefic aspects, friendships and enmities, and who is topping whom, who is putting baggage on that planet. You definitely need to see this so that you can actually tell the client who and how much trouble they can face in this area. I hope you like this video, and next time when you have a consultation, you will be able to tell where to avoid and what to do. Thank you so much.